So if we can do something that lets cultures communicate with each other, we are doing something that can be used at many levels. From one hand, it can be used by people who are simply studying the language because it is interesting to do it. Many small languages contain residuals. My language contains residuals of the old Frankish and Longobardic language, which is lost for everything else. But I can still say that I'm of Frankish descent because I call the womb Falda, and my neighbor called it Scossa, which is Longobardic. That richness we can save and we can document, but at the very same time we can document the same richness in Africa, in Asia, everywhere. And when we have this stuff usable and we can put it in open source around, we are going to give the students and the researchers material they can use and they can build it. So that's the third part of our activity. And I suppose that's all, because it's very few people in reality, and although, as you can see, I've been sleeping very little in the last weeks in order to prepare to be late here this morning. It's still a matter of fact that this just three things eat up basically all my day. So if we find other people coming in, it's going to be more projects, it's going to be more activities, but at the moment just doing this 3 branches of research is already more than we can chew, as you can easily imagine. There are 6,000 languages recorded in the ISO 6293 standard, which is heavily debatable. But supposing it's true, and it's just 6K languages, my conviction is that probably 1 million would be a better definition, because you have socialites, you have dialects, you have temporary stages of a language that are used by philologists in order to understand literature and things and stuff. So if you go to 1 million, you're probably closer to reality. But supposing it's just 6K, most of which do not have a script, some of which cannot be recorded because they are used as American Sign Language by people who cannot hear and speak. All of these are carriers that are used to communicate. All of them need to be put together and to be able to exchange. And you have such a variety of manifestation of these things that you can easily understand how complicated it is. Okay, thank you for your patience.
Okay. Now, one of the first things we mostly do is we start to translate software, documentation, or whatever. Very often it is necessary to translate first from one major language to another major language, and then from there we can go to the less resource languages, because, for example, in Africa we have many languages that should start off with French, but let's say we have material in German. So when we talk about educational materials or software, translations often are repetitive, and so probably, well, you all know it, we use CAT tools, computer-assisted translation tools, and mainly on the open source market, I would say there are 3 that are relevant. So you have Omega T, which started around 2001 to be developed. It supports various file formats, is widely used, and since version 202, it also supports ISO 693 languages now, which I had been asking for 4 or 5 years now, and it's definitely has been there for 2 months. Then we have Anaphrasios, which started, let's say, which you use in your OpenOffice.org suite, so you have no additional tool, and I would mainly use it to translate documentation or normal text, but it's not good for software localization. I mean, each one of these tools has advantages and disadvantages, so you really have to try them out to see which one could be the best for your work, for what you do, for what you want to achieve. The third one, Virtual, will be presented later today by Friede Wolf, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. I will send mainly an omega T and some of anaplasmas and show you with an example. I just did 3 sentences of a translation, how these normally do work, so that you can imagine and later on also compare. I believe that omega T is a very good tool. I myself use it also for technical manuals. Virtual is in a very early development stage, but I suppose it's going to get better and better, right? And so I would say in about half a year, we have to compare again what's actually better for which kind of translation. Now, for this translation, for this example, I used material from the University of Munich, which is educational material for physics lessons, science lessons for primary school. This material should go, it's under Creative Commons license, it's free license, so it should go into as many languages as possible to make it accessible to as many primary schools as possible. Our problem here is source language is German. Now, I'm German myself. My English is not so bad, but if I translate that into English, I mean, it's not really good for me to do that, I would say. So we need somebody who has fun to do this, but we can talk about this later. So, first of all, when you start with omega T, you have an instant guide that briefly tells you how to do the whole project, how to open it, how to go ahead. This is what I'm going to show you now. There are many, many details we cannot show in such a short time. It's really just an overview. There's much more possible than what is shown here. So, you create a new project, and then you select it. It depends very much on which system you use. It's Java based, and therefore you can use it on Windows. It's Linux and OS X. So it's for all platforms that run with Java. Okay, so here we have the dialog to create a new project. You enter your source language and your target language. What is relevant is always indicating which kind of German it is, which kind of English it is. Because Austrian German is different than German German, or Swiss German is also different. And you have the same with British English, American English, Australian English, and so on. So I would always add the locale if possible. The sentence segmentation can be avoided. This means when it segments, you get sentences. When it doesn't segment, you get whole paragraphs to translate. So also this can be helpful to exclude sentence segmentation sometimes when you have a text that, well, you cannot translate sentence by sentence, but you have to translate the whole concept of the whole contents, and you cannot really say this sentence is that sentence, but just what is said in all these pieces, I would say it like that. Completely different with different lengths of sentences. I mean, this happens often in translation. I have this very often, and so I find it very useful. Okay, now you can import your source files from here. What you can see, there is also an option to import directly from MediaWiki. This was made because many interesting articles that should be available also in other languages. So you don't have to go there, copy it, translate it, and get it back into the MediaWiki shape. You just call it in, translate it, and then when you export it, you have it in just to copy and paste it into the other Wikipedia with the other language. It helps for those who are not used to it, but okay, you have to try it out. Okay, then you get your files, you select them, you confirm obviously, and here then you see how many segments are to be translated. This means segments, sentences that can be of one word but also of 50, depends what it is. Okay, One of the main